Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Dive Master.
That is me. I am Greg the Dive Master from Scuba Radio. Check it out every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern Time across the country on radio stations and, of course, on the World Wide Web. But today we're doing our special Level Up podcast on the latest edition of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, the June edition. I got Willie Klein, the man behind the madness, with us. Willie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for doing this for us, Greg.
Yeah, no worries. Now, the latest issue is How to Speak Mandarin Fish. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's really a lesson on language. So, now actually the cover is shot by the brilliant Marty Snyderman. And this image was shot at Atlantis Resort in the Philippines. Correct, Marty?
Is that right? We got him with us.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. And we got the man himself, the legend here, that wrote a great article too, by the way.
Okay. And we're going to talk to Marty here in just a bit, I believe, about
we sure will.
That and then some. But before we get to Marty, we got to go to Dan Orr, who is in the Great White North, the Arctic up in Norway. I was just in his neck of the woods, but he's on connected via satellite phone right now. We got to get right to him because it's costing us a fortune to connect with Dan today. Dan, how you doing, buddy? How's things up there in the Great White North?
Well, thank you.
Yeah? So
it's really going very well. Yeah, we've had really good conditions.
Really good conditions. Are you diving up there? Or are you just traveling, looking at polar bears? What are you doing? I don't even know what they got.
We brought 19 people up here with us. We brought 11 divers and 7 snorkelers and a couple of researchers. And so we did 123 dives during the 2.5 weeks we were here.
Sweet.
And we collected a lot of data. Yeah, we had somebody from the Explorers Club here, which was a flagged research project from the Explorers Club, collecting data. And so it's been really good.
I was just.
And we actually had.
Go ahead.
We actually had an intern from the Boston Sea Rovers with us too.
Okay. Well, I was just up in that part of the world. I did not dive, but knowing how the weather can be in that part of the world, I'm assuming you're diving in board shorts and a T-shirt.
Of course. Yeah, the water temperature ranged from 0 to 0 Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
32 to 38 degrees.
All right. I'm suffering from shrinkage right now just talking about it. So we better just move on and talk about your contribution this month to Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. The article that you wrote for the latest issue here is called The Value of Refresher Training. So what do nurses and pilots have in common with divers? That's the question I was given to ask to you. So what's the commonality there, Dan?
Well, a lot of them are trained to do things that are complex psychomotor skills. And unless you practice those and reinforce those skills on a regular basis, you lose the ability to react and act effectively and efficiently and quickly. And so the important part about that is that divers very rarely have an opportunity to practice the critical skills that they learned in the scuba course that they took. Sometimes it's months or years or decades even before they actually have an opportunity to use those skills. And if it's in an emergency, sometimes their skills are so rusty that they're not effective and the results can be tragic.
Yes. Well, and you mentioned pilots or talking about how pilots and nurses and how that is so important. And as a pilot in training for 15 plus years, that's a whole different show, whole different story, by the way. I can attest to the fact that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And that comes to the type of thing you're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is a lot of the dive stores don't really market refresher programs effectively. And there are people out there that are really looking for things to do. In fact, on this trip, the 11 scuba divers that we had on this trip, a few of them had not been in cold water before. And so they had an opportunity to practice at home before they got here to make sure that their skills with the equipment they were using, including dry suits and very heavy gloves, they could use those skills effectively if they needed to.
Well, there you go. I love it. Now, we need to let you go. I'd love to keep you on longer, but, you're in the Great White North. I'm assuming you probably have to get over to a campfire to warm up right now because he's like huddled in an igloo or something. That's how I picture you right now. Is that accurate or no, Dan?
Well, I was actually going to head to the bar.
Okay, well that'll work too.
Perfect.
Campfire, hard liquor. Either it does the same thing.
And by the way, the place where I was at was the Svalbard Archipelago, which is halfway between the coast of Norway and the North Pole.
Oh wow,
that's where I'm at right now.
Well, tell Santa we said hi, and we'll let you get back
do that.
and take lots of
tell
pictures.
Him I'm being good. I'm being good this year.
Yeah.
I will tell him.
He's asking you to lie.
Even though he's not going to believe it, I'll tell him anyway.
All right, fair enough.
Right.
All right,
Thanks,
there you go.
Dan.
Okay,
Dan Orr.
Thank you very much. You all take care.
All right, there you go.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Look, he's living the life, isn't he, Willie? Come on.
He sure is. Something really fascinating in his article. He says that based on research, 76% of nurses, 6 months after they completed their advanced cardiac life support program, cannot pass it again. Because of if they haven't used it, they haven't had the skills. So, I mean, that's some fantastic numbers. He also did a great article.
Yeah.
If you didn't hear read his article last month, which was the normalization of deviance, he talked about the space shuttle crash and how spectacularly terrible that was, and how NASA got to the point that they're okay with making the same mistake over and over again until it became catastrophic. So he's just got an incredible writing skill, and I'm really excited to have Dan involved with us.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it, and he's obviously living the life we all, aspire to as divers traveling the world and diving as much as possible.
And we skipped right over introducing Britton because we wanted to get Dan since he was on satellite phone, but my son, Britton Klein, is on the call with us. He's going to become a regular on the show here. He's doing some content advising to the show itself. He's also in charge of our ad sales. And Britton, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, really, really happy to be here.
Well, welcome, Britton. It's good to have someone, the younger generation represented. And
well, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
He has an interesting dive story of how he became a diver. That's worth listening for a second.
Give it to us.
Definitely. Yeah, I was, my family would go with my father to Nassau, Bahamas, every so often to go to work, right? Go to work with Dad. And when I was 10, I had actually taken my open water class with Stuart Michelle Cove's kids, Travis and Sasha. They were about the same age, and it was a lot of great fun, but got to share an instructor, which was really cool. Her name was Liz Parkinson, who's now actually pretty famous and well known in Hollywood, which is kind of cool.
Great gal.
Oh, she's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Love her to death. But my checkout dive was on the Ray of Hope wreck next to Shark Arena, that has the sharks circling all over the entire dive, which is great. But I spent most of my summers running around Stuart Cove's docks and jumping all over his boats and stuff like that, kind of learning the ins and outs of dive resorts. But fast forward to last year, to where Stuart actually hired me to do some of his group sales stuff. I had been calling, dive shops and all over the U.S., which was such a blessing, really, really cool to be a part of. But, when my father called, I couldn't resist jumping on board with SDIM. It's too good of a gig, too cool, and hit too close to home. So I thoroughly enjoyed speaking to many of the industry professionals so far, and I'm looking forward to meeting back up with them in DEMA in November.
Well, there you go. Well, welcome to the party, my friend. And it sounds like you got a great start to your diving life when you're hanging with that quality of scuba diving industry clientele. And I'm going to apologize for myself. I don't know about the rest of the panel today, but as you get to know the rest of us, we always love bringing in new blood to the industry. So God knows we need it and we want it. So welcome aboard for sure. All right. So we've already been, we've talked about the Bahamas. We've talked about the Great White North, the Arctic, Norway, where Dan is. It's time to go halfway around the planet to Australia, I believe. Is that right, Willie? What do you think?
That is so correct. I had the pleasure of meeting Terry in Kuwait many years ago on a sales trip I was doing with a Stuart, of all people. And we went from there to Cairo and then down to Sharm el-Sheikh and eventually to Dahab, which is through the desert trip. It was quite amazing, and got the dive in the famous blue hole of Dahab. So that's the last time I saw Terry, and it's been a while, but he's supplying some fantastic articles, really, really, truly unique from his part of the world. So,
well, his part of the world isn't Dahab, it's Australia. right,
Yeah,
Terry?
it's true, right.
Queensland, Australia. G'day, mate. I do a terrible Australian accent. That's all you're going to get out of me, Terry, and I'm going to apologize to you as well. So, but welcome. How are you?
I'm really good. I really appreciate being involved with this group of such fantastic people that I've admired for so many years. And I'm really looking forward to continuing with the magazine on a monthly basis with some, contributing articles. So might give a bit of a perspective to the rest of the world and also bring a bit of ideas and stuff that might be helpful to our listeners and readers.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt. I mean, I've been to Australia once. I was so impressed with the dive operators I saw down under, and I'm sure you were one of them. Now, you wrote an article for the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry magazine called The Evolution of the Bottom Line in Dive Tourism. So our question for you is, how has the bottom line evolved over the years, and why does this matter to dive tourism? What can you tell us, Terry?
Well, I think it goes back to really my interest in the dive industry and its long-term sustainability and the research I've personally been doing into the industry and where it's heading, etc. The bottom line is a really interesting concept because it started in the 1920s when bookkeepers and accountants actually drew a line on the spreadsheet to sort of summarize what the company had actually done during that time. And it was based on virtually economic supply, demand, and of cost price on one side and, a customer review on the other. But over the years, the bottom line has become quite a common phrase in our Western world, I guess I can use that term, language. And so I thought, well, let's have a look at how it's evolved into the dive industry. And so I think probably after the 1920s, and looking at the researchers that have actually been involved in looking at dive destinations and dive operations, we found that we had people add environment to the three things that actually impact a long-term sustainability of an operation. And then that led to the term triple bottom line. But over time, what's really happened is there's been a whole lot of identification of other major factors that have impacted the bottom line. Past 1920 and then 2000, governance was a really important one that people started to see was going to impact their business in the long term. And the best way to explain that is someone once said to me years ago that in the diving industry, if we didn't have some forms of governance, there wouldn't be any need for training agencies. And I think when you think about that and all the laws that are impacting us, it's certainly a factor that our dive operators have to look at to actually make sure that they have that long-term sustainability. Then over time again, various researchers have looked at the bottom line and thought, well, there's other things that actually also impact it. In my case, I looked at technology and the latest developments in the industry and found that basically if we don't keep producing new products on the hardware side, of course, we commonly do that, but probably less commonly on the technical side, we actually don't do enough with things like the use of customer relation management tools and certainly the internet's getting used more and more these days, but I think we could use it better. And then finally, and we're now up to number 6 of the major impacts, I think major stakeholders' needs, wants and desires are also extremely important. And I think if I can stretch the examples a little bit, I think the current impact that we've had from insurance stakeholders on our liveaboard vessels is a really good example of how that can have a major impact. And I guess what the summary of the article is, and I developed a model to sort of simplify all the complex issues that are related and how they're all interrelated together. I think the bottom line is that dive destinations in particular have to look at the long-term sustainability because we've got good examples right across the world where Leonardo DiCaprio's beach is a great example of where we suffered from over-tourism and eventually had to be shut down and regulated and all the rest of it. So there's some really good examples of how the bottom line has affected us right across the world. over time.
I love it. It's good stuff. I can't help but wanting to ask you though, when you host divers from around the world, especially from America to Australia, and they come up to you and say they pull out their dive knife, and do you say, "You call that a knife?" Do you do that, or do you want to stab them with them? And when they bring that up,
I don't want to stab them at all because I'm based in Cairns, which we like to call the diving capital of the world, and that's kind of arrogant. But
okay, well that's fine.
We have, and my research shows that the US is our third biggest market, and we treat them with a lot of care, and we try to look after them and appeal to the minor differences in our culture, etc. So we don't whack out the big Bowie knife, but I think we can do that if you want us to.
No, I mean I'm just trying to prepare myself for my next.
I've always read there's one golden rule: never pick a bar fight in Australia.
Yes, I would probably anywhere for that matter. Would probably be good advice.
Come with a gun that starts with a 4.
Yeah, love it.
Thank you, Terry, for coming on. It's great to see you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
There you go. All right. Okay. So from Australia, let's bring on our great friend who has the best view of the group. Seems like almost every week. And she's a regular contributor to Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Latest issue, June, is what we're going over. And I'm talking about Catherine Garcia, Catherine Castle Garcia. Catherine, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Good to see all these smiling faces from all over the world.
Yeah. Well, this week you actually brought in reinforcements to help you with your latest. Is this because of the latest article you wrote for the magazine on how to execute coaching and how it can help your business, or what?
Yes, I have Kelly Hendricks with me. She was one of the subjects in the article about executive coaching. So she's on the road right now. She's just defended her PhD dissertation, and she's on the road and celebrating that. So round of applause for Shelley.
Yeah, congrats.
And
there we
Shelley,
go.
if you can hear us, you're welcome to jump in.
Yes, talk to us. How is the celebration going?
Hi, everyone. Celebration seems to be going so far so good. Just happy to be at this point in the process. And thanks for including me today.
So how did she work with you on this exactly, Catherine?
Well, I'm trained as a coach, but my specialty is in creative coaching with authors and artists to help them kind of tap into their own their creativity, creative juices, and be more productive with that. Whereas Shelley has some serious chops as an executive coach. So I can help you with the right-brained, creative parts of your business, but Shelley can get down to the bottom line with you. Talking about the bottom line earlier, she's got the executive coaching skills to help you really get your business moving. And I think it's safe to say that not many divers got into owning or operating a dive center because they were really good at business. I think most of us fell backwards into it off a boat and then had to figure out how to make the business swim. And Shelley can help with that.
Aha. You mean like got into the business like, oh, wait a minute, we got to make money doing this scuba diving thing? Oh, crap.
Precisely.
And Shelley, that's how you jump in and get everybody in line in that regard, or what do you think?
Definitely partner with business owners on strategic planning and finding out what's not working in your business so that we can help you make it different going forward. Yeah.
Plus, she's just happened to be a really nice person too.
Well, that helps. That definitely helps. But yeah, it sounds like a pretty good combo. You got Catherine helping you with the creative, and Shelley helping with the, the business, the management, the marketing, that kind of thing, I assume, and kind of keeping things in order, right? Organized, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. And for people that aren't familiar with coaching, a lot of people don't understand what that is. And essentially, like if you were on a team and the coach was taking you to, let's say, a football game or a soccer match, the coach would likely be the one driving, and you're in the back going wherever the coach is leading. And you're going to operate as a team because the coach tells you to. With executive coaching, it's putting you in the driver's seat of where you want to go. And what you have next to you is an executive coach who's got the GPS and the roadmap and the playbook all there, and probably some snacks. And they've got the encouragement, like, here's the exit you need to take, or this is the path that you need to follow in order to get where you're going. But you, as the business owner, are the one in the driver's seat. And it's the coach's job to help collaborate with you, support you, and help you really get where you're going. And I think as a former dive center business owner myself, there were a lot of times when I could have used a co-pilot and somebody to help steer me in the right direction.
Yeah.
So that's what executive coaching is all about.
All right. Yeah. You're like the quarterback of your business, and you need your coach to kind of, set up the plays, and maybe the assistant coach to help you with the defensive stuff. And then at the end of the game, you get to throw, buckets of Gatorade on each other or something. I don't know. In celebration. Is that right, Catherine? Or should we not go there?
I don't know about that, but go team.
Okay, that's good enough.
Go team.
That's good enough. Good out. Good out. She knows when to distance herself from my nonsense. But
from your shenanigans.
Yes. Well, Catherine Castle Garcia, always a pleasure catching up with you. And we'll read that a little bit more in depth in the latest issue. Now, Willie, we got our next guest. We teased him earlier, and now we got the man, the myth, I was going to say the madman, but that's not
beautiful
accurate.
Photo of mandarin fish he shot for our cover. So thank you again, Marty.
Marty Snyderman. Marty, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Oh, good, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah. So, congrats on the cover of one of thousands in your illustrious career, I would imagine. But it's always impressive, this one in particular. What can you tell us? What went into this particular issue and that cover and that picture? Is there a story behind the picture itself, too, or no?
Yeah, there always is. It's knowing something about the animals you're going out to photograph.
Yeah.
But if you just swim around with a camera and try to shoot at anything with gills, it just, that doesn't float my boat. And I really like knowing about animals and mandarin fish. I mean, I'm certainly not the only person that does. There's mandarin fish dives all over the Indo-Pacific. But if you know about the animals, and it's just easier to go get this. It's a very timed thing. It happens at sunset almost every night. And, you go out, you have a little patience, and you get frustrated, and you don't get it the first few times, and you keep trying, and eventually you got to pay bills, so you get it.
Well, you see, now that's stuff I didn't know. I've never went on a mandarin fish photo shoot, but I didn't. So it's a certain time of day you got to go to find them. And
that kills me that you've never done that.
I know. I mean, well, as many years as I've been diving, it's pale in comparison to a lot of the people on our panel today. But it keeps you wanting to do something new or learn something new in our industry. The
problem is, Greg, is that it happens during happy hour.
Oh, well, there's that issue. That's a problem. Okay. That explains a lot. But no, I don't even
be happy to go.
Yeah. I mean, these mandarin fish are mostly Pacific, deep Pacific type fish that you got to go to certain places or no?
No, they're like 15 feet deep.
15 foot deep.
Pacific, but it happens in rubble zones right off the shorelines.
Okay. All right.
And so
very colorful, I see. Yeah. All right. Well, see, but that's the thing. There's always something new as a diver in your diving life when you think you've been there, dove that. There's always something new, and that kind of keeps us fresh and wanting to, explore the next critter. And mandarin fish are on my list. And you see, so you just educated me. Is it kind of what you get into on the article in the latest issue of Scuba Diving?
Greg, it's funny. Magazine? The first thing when you contacted me about being on the panel and writing, or when Willie contacted me about writing, and you contacted me, you said expand on your article. Well, I'm sitting here in front of my editor for 20 years or 30 years, and if I wrote a 1,500-word article, the first thing she's going to tell me is it'd have been better if it was 1,200 words long. So I should probably tighten up what I have to say. But the fact is, but to me, animals are the stars of our show. Yep. And our industry ought to know about them and market them and sell them and use it. And I think everybody here, I don't know everybody on this panel. I wish I knew everybody better, but I'd be willing to bet everybody's fascinated by Mother Nature one way or another.
Sure.
And diving is the vehicle for me, and I think for a lot of people, that takes us into that world. And my real point is, and I wish as an industry, we were better educated so that we had more confidence in sharing our message and sharing that message. And I just think it's not, we don't have to be marine biologists. We just have to know a little bit about the environment and the animals that we take people to see. And they're investing their time and their energy and their money with us. Give them the best show we can. And I think it was Alex Brilski that wrote about this at one point that said, as dive masters and as professionals, we can be okay or we can be excellent. And, I just don't see any reason to pursue mediocrity. But the real point is to learn about the wildlife or the organisms we're going to see and just have a little something to share in dive briefings and about trips. And I said in the article something along the lines of, look, we all love to dive, but I think the thing that gets us going on the next trip is not really that there's a new regulator or there's 3 choices of new colors and fins. It's to go have the adventure. And what makes the adventure to me is knowing about the animals I'm going to go see. For some people, it's shipwrecks or spearfishing or some other hobby within our sport. But for a lot of us, and for a lot of our clients, it's just about the animals. So give them the show.
Yeah, critters are cool.
That's what I really think we should do.
There's no doubt about it. I love the fact that there's always something new, and if you're used to it or you're aware of, say, like the mandarin fish, and I would be fortunate enough to go diving with you someday, and you go like, "Hey, Greg, I'm going to take you down. We're going to go in 15 feet of water at sunset. I know it's going to cut into your happy hour, but check this out." And we're going to have the dive of our lives. I know. And you're going to enjoy the fact that I've seen this for the first time. You may have seen it 1,000 times, but you feed off of that and you've just made the next diver, you've passed it forward. You know what I mean?
It's the funnest, if that's a word, stuff in dive. I've got my editor here. I can't say that. It's the mostest funnest thing in diving. And for me, I love sharing that with people. And what really happens is, you see their light bulb go off and the enthusiasm. And it's not just that, but it's once you peel back a little bit of that onion, you just find out that there's more and more and more. And that's just Mother Nature's. It's just coolest lady on the planet.
Love it. Love it. Well, there you go.
That's what we've got.
And once again, his mandarin fish, a couple of them getting their freak on. I don't even know if that's accurate. But regardless, it's an amazing photo on the cover of Scuba Diving Industry magazine. The latest issue is June, and that's what we're talking about. Marty, great work as always, my friend. And one of these days, you're going to take me on one of the mandarin fish dives. I'm going to hold you to it, okay?
I'll be there.
All right. Well, there we go. Right. There we got that to look forward to. Now, he mentioned Alex Brilski, and lo and behold, we have him on the panel today. Alex, how you doing, buddy? It's been a while.
I'm alive, so I'm doing great.
Well, okay. All right, the bar's pretty low, but that's okay. We'll take it. So you wrote some stuff for the latest issue as well, how to create Eco Pros, which I know is a passion project you've been involved in for quite some time. And so my question to you is, why do we need Eco Pros in the dive industry anyway? What can you tell us?
Well, I think Marty set the stage for that quite well. The concept of EcoPro actually came out of my academic career. When I was at the College of Florida Keys, I was hired to teach marine science and scientific diving. But when the head of the tourism and hospitality management program found out I'd spent 18 years in the dive industry, she asked if I could create a course on sustainable tourism. And I taught that class. It was Marine Ecology for Tourism Professionals, it was called. It was a great experience. And when I retired, I decided that much of what I was doing with these younger, undergraduates was completely applicable to the dive industry. So I set about tweaking that a bit, adjusting it specifically for dive professionals, and created actually what's now a 6-day course in sustainable dive tourism. as a result of what I'd seen in the industry, and we're a stagnant industry in my view, largely because we put so little effort into professional development. And by that I mean, to become a dive professional, one usually says, well, I need to become a scuba instructor. Now that's important, but it's not sufficient, because there's so much more one needs to know about the industry other than teaching scuba. And so what is that? And so over the past 3 issues, what I've tried to do is kind of establish, a kind of a roadmap. I wrote an article on what I describe as not being just another instructor, trying to recognize that to be effective in the industry, we really need to understand 3 driving what I call mega trends in terms of how resources are degrading. Coral reefs are on the brink of collapse. How the consumer has changed fundamentally with regard to sustainability, and how the industry, how the broad travel and tourism industry, not just the dive industry, has changed. And without some insights into those 3 mega trends, a successful career is going to be pretty darn difficult. And so this program that I've created has evolved, some of which is now online. I had the opportunity to work with the Ocean First Institute and created an online component of some of the things we do in the EcoPro course that I teach at Sea Experience in Fort Lauderdale. So it's been a journey, and it's I think some folks are listening. I wish the industry would embrace these ideas a bit more fervently, but I'm doing what I can and still having fun. That's the important thing.
Well, it is. You got to have fun first and educate second. And I think that's where this comes into play. The more you know about the environment you're diving and you share that knowledge with your dive students, I think they appreciate that. I mean, we're educating ocean ambassadors. I mean, that's a natural evolution, I think, in the dive certification process. And I think you're just taking it to another level. Is that a fair assessment, do you think, there, Alex? Or
I would agree, but I would also caution one thing. There's what we need to do is go beyond education into interpretation. Environmental interpretation is its own discipline unto itself, and it's been completely ignored in the scuba industry by the training agencies, everyone. And in a nutshell, when we're educators, we're talking to the head. When we're interpreters, we're talking to the heart. And there are methodologies we can use to better convey these messages that Marty's trying to explain, so vehemently. And we're not listening. We have to really up our game with regard to professional development, because becoming a scuba instructor, it just ain't enough anymore.
Yeah. Well, that emotional connection to the environment, to protecting what we love to do and see, I think there's a lot to be said to that. And Alex is doing great work in that arena, for sure. Alex, thank you so much. Always a pleasure catching up, my friend.
Likewise, buddy.
Yeah, and Willie, up next, one of my favorite names in the dive industry. I think she should have her own cartoon show. Brooke Speedy. Muncie, Indiana. We've had you on before, Brooke, but man, what a cool name. Brooke Speedy. I wish, just sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon. I don't know. You get that a lot, or is that just me being an idiot? Brooke, what do you think?
Yeah. I get it quite a lot.
Okay. Well, now I don't feel as bad. Yeah.
Tell me you have brookspeedy.com.
Oh, I don't, but that's a good idea. Maybe I'll get on that.
It's such a great name.
It is. Yeah. Well, you wrote for the latest issue as well, and you specialize in full service dive centers and how to run a full service dive center. So question for you today is, how do you average 80% of your open water students purchasing just basic dive gear? How do you do this exactly, Brooke?
Yeah. So it's a little tricky nowadays when people can buy stuff online. But we found a method that's worked pretty well for us. Our course, about halfway through, is when we require our students to get their gear. And so by not making them have it the first day, we're able to educate them about the best kind of gear to buy. We let them use and try the gear that we offer here. So they kind of get to try a little bit before they buy. And then we offer them, if they don't like what they bought, or they want a different color, or they need a different size, throughout the class, they can just bring it in and we'll exchange it to them or with them. So we just do our best to educate them and make the process as easy as possible. I can always tell which instructor my students have, because some of them have gotten a lot better at kind of hyping them up on the first day. And Tom, he's gotten to the point now where his students, they come in before the first day and buy their gear just because he's talked to them so much in the store. Our other instructors, they do a great job of educating on like class number 1 and 2. But even them, this kind of quarter, I've had a lot more people buy their gear before that halfway mark. So the more you educate your students and take the time to get to know them and kind of talk about how they get to save money if they buy gear just once and it's the right kind, rather than buying wrong stuff online, then it helps build relationships and it helps you sell good gear.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that hit so close to home for me when I first started in the dive industry. I mean, I had a rough one at the beginning, because I did get kind of roped into kind of like a flash in the pan dive shop thing that was running specials during Christmas, and it was a really high pressure sales thing that they wanted me to buy everything up front, and didn't really sit well with me. And I literally went down the street to a different dive shop, and a few weeks later, after I got to a certain point, and they kind of took me under their fin, and it made all the difference in the world. And it turns you into a long-term customer. And I think the customer appreciates the fact that you took the time to educate them a little bit about the gear that they need to purchase, and take them to the next level and make it a long-term customer. That's what you're shooting for, right, Brooke?
Yeah, it's so important. The points of contacts you have with your customers, the more friendly your interactions, the more open to questions. We call them baby divers when they first come in because they have so much to learn. And by the time they get out of that open water class, they've graduated a little bit, but they're still considered baby divers until they do their checkout dives and get a little more experience.
Well, follow the fin kicks of Brooke Speedy. It sounds like a book, or at least a Saturday morning cartoon to me. I love it, Brooke. Keep up the good work. I'll get started
on that.
Yes. Keep up the good work. Yes. Next up, Willie. Oh, this is great. I have not had Jeffrey on Scuba Radio. I don't think before. Maybe we have, but it's been way too long. Jeffrey Bozanek. I mean, I've known your career for years, Jeffrey, and it is an honor to have you as part of the panel today. You are a dive industry icon, written God knows how many books. You've done everything. I've read about you for years. I don't know that we've had much interaction. You've been smart enough to keep me at a distance.
If you were to get closer to what I do, you'd probably will run in the other direction.
Well, that's what most people say about me. So maybe we're repelling each other. I don't know.
Or maybe we'd make a good match. Who knows?
Okay, I think so. I mean, you do a lot of technical stuff, I know, and you wrote for the latest issue some stuff about rebreathers 101. I've dabbled in that over the years. I don't know if dabble's the right word. You really got to take this stuff kind of serious if you want to get into it. But the question for you is, how many divers are certified with rebreathers, and what's the safest type of recreational rebreather out there right now? According to you.
I'm going to step on Willie a little bit and say those are silly questions.
Okay, of course they are.
So
and he wrote them.
I'm going to back off to.
It's Jeff, choose your own adventure.
More about what Marty had to say earlier, and the fact that we are in this activity. For some of it's a hobby, for some of it's an avocation, for some of it's a profession, because we love seeing what we love to see. We love nature. We love getting to see new experiences. We love going to new places. And a rebreather is really a tool to allow us to be able to expand what we're able to see. And a lot of us started with snorkels and snorkeling. Many of us graduated into scuba diving. Some of us graduated into wearing doubles so we could go longer or go further. And rebreathers are just another tool to allow us to experience a part of that environment that we haven't seen before. So when we look at the question that was posed, how many people are doing it? Not enough is the answer. Because the reality is that this is a tool that a lot of people could use to be able to expand what it is they're able to see and what they want to do. But they don't recognize that, or they're hesitant to go there, in large part because of the attitudes that we have promoted as an industry, that this myth that rebreathers are for technical divers. And so you mentioned the fact that my career is a technical diving career, but the reality is I started as a recreational diver, and I'm still a recreational diver. I love going in the ocean and looking at fish. It doesn't make a difference. Mandarin fish, sharks, octopus, dolphins, Garibaldi. It doesn't make a difference to me whether they're common fish or uncommon fish or big scary fish sometimes. The answer is I love interacting with nature and I love seeing what's out there. And rebreathers allow us an opportunity to be able to go out and do that in a different manner than we can with open circuit scuba. And so it's a different experience. And that's really what we ought to be looking at is how do we promote the fact that this experience is different than scuba and allows you more of an opportunity to see what nature has to offer or to go places where you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And so many times I'm diving, right off the beach here in Southern California. I live in Southern Cal. And it's like I swim off the beach. I get to the limits of my scuba tank. I've got to turn around because I've got to have enough air to go back. And I haven't seen or I haven't been to where I wanted to get to yet. And a rebreather allows me that extra time, if I want it, to be able to go just that much further, to be able to go see what's around the next corner, what's around the next rock, or what's down at the end of the reef, where otherwise I'd either have to get a different tool like a boat or not be able to see it. And so in my mind, the value of rebreathers is the ability to interact with nature at a different level, to be able to see things that you couldn't see otherwise, or just to be able to explore more and to enjoy more of the environment than you would otherwise.
So true. It's quieter, no bubbles. The fish aren't afraid of you because you're not spewing many bubbles at all. I mean, it's a totally different experience, and you're so right as far as it being another level. And I will say
it doesn't need to be seen as technical.
Yeah.
My son, when I taught him to dive rebreathers, was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so you ask, what is the safest rebreather? A lot of people ask, are rebreathers safe? I wouldn't have let my kid at 12 years old dive these systems if I didn't feel that they were safe. And the reality is that all of the rebreathers on the market right now are safe, or everything has risk, are not unduly unsafe, I guess is a better way of putting it.
Right. Well, and the technology has really been advancing in that sector the last few years on a remarkable rate, right?
Yep. And he actually made a comment that set me back on my heels because, I wrote the book Mastering Rebreathers when no other book was on the market. And I said things in that book that perhaps I wish now, looking back from 30 years later, I hadn't have said, because my views have changed as well. But one of the things that he said is, Dad, this isn't that dangerous. This isn't complex. It's no harder than putting together a Lego kit.
Okay.
Sure. And that's coming Greg, from the perspective of a 12-year-old, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked Jeff to write, he's actually writing a series, and he's going to write several more because I think as an industry, I am part of this same thing. I don't understand them. I don't understand how they fit. There's a ton of challenges from a business perspective for someone like Brooke to put it into place at their dive shop. I do a lot of work, have done a lot of work in the resort industry. How do those fit within, the time restraints of a standard 2-take dive? So we're going to address a lot of really fun stuff in the coming months with Jeff and how rebreathers can expand or be involved in our industry.
Well, there you go. He wrote the book on it, so I think he got a pretty good source for the material there. Jeff, a pleasure Thanks for that. That's great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. All right, next up we got Gil Zemer. I think I said, did I say the last name right? I didn't say it right. Say it again. Zeimer. I'm sorry.
Zeimer.
Yeah.
Z-Y.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Gil's kind of new to, at least to me. And we met at the LA show at the beginning of June. And he proposed some various articles. And I was fascinated by some of the stuff that he's actually a commercial writer for advertising agencies and has written and he's written a lot of diving stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But he proposed this article that I just found absolutely fascinating, and that is the gray tsunami. And I'm going to let you guys take it from there, because it's receiving our most number of views right now in the issue. People are fascinated by it. Doesn't matter if you're a dive shop owner and you just got you and somebody else running a business, or you're a scuba pro. This is something the entire industry needs to be aware of.
So yeah, Gil, what is the gray tsunami? What does that mean?
Okay, I'll tell about that in a minute. I want to go back to what Marty was saying about fun and funnest. To me, diving is the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
Uh-oh.
That's good.
And that's how I describe fun in advertising.
Hey, if everybody wasn't muted, they'd all be laughing, by the way.
I know, yeah. I'm very pleased to be on this panel and to be writing articles for this magazine, which is new, as we know. But I've written thousands of advertising projects, and I've written hundreds of scuba articles, and I want to write more for this magazine. But the gray tsunami, raise your hand. I'll answer your question with another question. Raise your hand if you're over 55. So
we're supposed to admit it? Are you kidding? Okay. Yeah, I guess. All right.
Yeah, even you, Greg.
Yeah, I know.
So we are the gray tsunami. We're baby boomers. And when I started writing this article, I thought that baby boomers were maybe 20, 25% of the worldwide scuba market. But Williams' stats from his own publications and from DEMA showed me that they're 40%, which shocked me. And besides that, 10,000 people turn 55 every day in the U.S. And that 40% represents like 2.5 million divers in the U.S. and 6 million worldwide, and about 1.1 billion people globally. So it's a much bigger market than I even thought it was. And another stat is that people in the gray tsunami are spending $3.8 billion with a B dollars a year in the diving industry, between gear, trips, certification classes, and all that stuff. So compared to our younger cohorts, in particular, me and my dive club here in Marin County, where most of us are baby boomers, we have the money, we have the time, and we have the inclination and the passion to go on many, many trips a year instead of one trip a year when I was in the working, when I was employed by ad agencies, and more when I was freelancing. But we can travel as much as we want, as long as we want. And it's what my wife and I call ski vacations, spending kids' inheritance. Ski vacations.
Just did that.
Because last year we went to Italy for a month. We didn't travel. I mean, we didn't dive. My wife doesn't dive, but I have to negotiate my vacations. But anyway, we can take longer vacations. We can go more often. And in my own dive club, many of us in our 70s and 80s dive. There was one guy who was 91 who was still diving. I'm not in touch with him anymore. I'd like to interview him for an article if he's still around. But the bottom line is that the industry should not overlook seniors, and because we're young at heart, we're vibrant, we're a growing cohort, and we may lose our car keys occasionally. We may forget where we parked our car. We may forget what we had for dinner, or even if we had dinner. But we have the time and the money to travel as much as we want. And the Great Tsunami is only going to get bigger as time goes on.
I like it.
So Greg,
I don't like the age element of it, but whatever.
I know.
Yeah,
I'll take it. A couple of quick facts. In doing some very deep dive into the DEMA studies that they've done recently, we found that that people that are 55 or older are 434% more likely to have purchased a hard goods, which is a regulator, a BC, dive computer, on their last dive shop visit. They're 330% more likely to purchase travel on their last dive shop visit. Yeah. So the numbers are startling in comparison. It makes sense. You're at the age where you can afford to do things and you can afford to travel.
Yeah. And I don't care what they say. We're still pretty awesome.
We are.
So, yeah, like 60,
and
60
we're more
to
educated
40.
too. We're because we're continually diving and we're continually going to new places. We're safer divers, I would think, than the younger people who've taken 20 dives in their whole life and think, oh, it's a blast, I'm going to go diving, but they're not experienced. And a friend of mine in my dive club said what's become to me the 100 dive rule. Once you've done 100 dives or so, virtually everything that can happen to you underwater has happened. Free flowing regulator, lost your mask, lost a fin, various equipment problems, computer problems. You've experienced all these things and you know how to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Old farts rule. That's what
thanks
I'm going
again,
with.
Gil. That's great.
Hey, thanks, everyone.
Love it. All right.
I'm so excited for the next guest. I have to do the intro here.
Okay, go, Willie.
Jeff Serapino. It only took me 6 months to get it right?
A couple of years
so go
now,
ahead.
Willie. It's like...
Yeah. It's Jeff owns a dive shop in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and he has just been a breath of fresh air to the magazine. He wrote an article that inspired this exact show, which was how to do a podcast. And he told you the equipment, he told the platform and everything. So we wouldn't even have this little fun get together if it wasn't for him. So thanks to Jeff for your contributions. I look forward to many, many more.
There you go. Yeah, Jeff, you wrote in the latest issue how dive retailers can cater to an at-once world. Now, what the heck does that mean?
So it's actually how can we get to be an at-once customer just like our clients are out there. I mean, we live in an at-once world right now. You go online, few mouse clicks, boom, Amazon truck, FedEx, whatever's at your door the next day with your package, right? But as a dive retailer, we don't get the same luxury. Sometimes we order stuff and it might take 10 days for us to get it. And that's really challenging to compete with when a customer wants something and you're not there to have it. Because let's face it, inventory, and I wrote the article last month about inventory management. It's not something we really love to do, but it's a necessary evil in owning a dive shop or any retail environment. And inventory costs money. It takes up space. There's so many different vendors out there providing product. And oh, by the way, those products get discontinued really quickly, and you're forced having old gear there that people now don't want anymore. So we need to have the same environment as the consumer does. We need to have an at-once world. And I'll give you an example of how it works, specifically with wetsuits. I mean, there are all kinds of body types, shapes, sizes. People come in and they want to buy a wetsuit. It's hard to have every size for every person across both men and women's. So how do you deal with that? You don't want to lose the sale. You don't want them to go online and buy something that might not fit or whatever. Well, one of the ways that we've done it is, we have a lot of wetsuits in our rental inventory, a lot of sizes, because we teach and we use them all the time. And we like a lot from one specific provider, from one specific product line. Well, we might not have that suit in what they want, but we have a size that they can try on. They can come in, they can try on the size, multiple sizes. We make sure it fits, make sure it's comfortable for them. And then before they leave the store, we can go to that vendor's B2B site, see if it's in stock. And if it is, they will buy the suit from us, because you know what? That vendor provides it to us within 2 days. They're willing to wait the 2 days. Now, conversely, if I don't have a specific regulator in stock and I go to a vendor, it's in stock, and I don't get it for 10 days, they have a little bit of a problem with that. So when I talk about an at-once world for retailers, we need to have suppliers, manufacturers, distributors who are in that same environment for us, much like, because we're their customer. And we should get it just like the consumer. Have it there. And you know what? The the divers want to come in, they want to talk, they want to go through the equipment, they want their guidance, but they also want their product. And we have to be able to deliver it at once to them, just like everybody else gets it.
Yeah, I think it's you've outlined a plan to make it happen. It's not that hard to do if you put a little thought to it.
We're trying. We seek out vendors that work with us with that at-once environment.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that's the trend for all businesses at this point. Good stuff indeed. Our last but not least. Is this right, Willie? This is the last one we got?
Yes, it sure is.
Carl Eaton with us from California. Carl, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Sure. So you've written for the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. The title of your article, Not Just Tourism Missions or Tourist Missions to Help, Suitcases of Love. What does this mean exactly? What are you doing?
Well, we basically what we do is we get medical supplies from hospitals that they would normally throw away because of rules and regulations, suitcases donated from the general public. We put those two together. When people travel to developing countries, we give them a suitcase filled with medical supplies and connect them with a clinic that helps the local population. So for a very small part of your vacation, half an hour of your vacation, you've done something to help the country that you're visiting. And it's very simple, very easy. And a suitcase of supplies is significant to some of these smaller locations. There's a lot of small items that go into a suitcase.
No doubt. And so you're using divers element, or that we travel around quite a bit, using that activity or element of our passion, and saying, hey, could you take one of these suitcases to, a small village in Fiji or someplace out in the world? Is that what you're talking about, or what?
Exactly. And divers in particular, because of the destinations they go to, are a particularly good match with us, because they are going to out of kind of more rural locations than, say, somebody that's visiting Fiji, where they just don't leave the major city, which there isn't a major city, but
yeah,
so divers go to those small communities where a suitcase of medical supplies may contain 6 months of bandages for that clinic that's in that small community.
Sure.
So it can make a major difference.
Yeah, that is great work. And, it's just, an addendum to what we do when we travel to some of these more remote places. And I've seen it. I've been fortunate enough to travel to some of these far and remote places, and just bringing, just a couple little extra things with you. Like they'll tell you, hey, if you have any old bifocals or something, throw them in your bag and stuff. You're just taking this to a whole nother level and having even a bigger impact. But I've seen it. When they get this stuff, they're ecstatic. It's like Christmas in July, right? For them, when you bring something as simple that we're so used to.
I'm going to add a little bit to that.
Yeah, Jeffrey, what do you got?
It doesn't necessarily need to be limited to just medical supplies. We've been on trips where our groups have carried things like pencils and notepads.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
For kids that are literally sharing a pencil in a classroom, because not every kid has a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
Little stuff that we take for granted goes a really long way in some of these remote locations that we travel routinely as divers. And so your concept about bringing medical supplies is great.
Yeah.
But don't limit yourselves to just that, because a lot of these places have a lot of other needs on day-to-day supplies that we throw away routinely out of each one of our households.
Right.
And by bringing those to some of these locations, they're appreciative and ecstatic to be able to have.
Sure. So and the fact that you're doing medical supplies, I mean, that, you're saving lives and stuff. So that's great
Carl,
stuff.
We got retailers all over the United States, but of course, listening to this all over the world. How can they help? How can they help with your mission?
Our biggest opportunity is spreading the word. I mean, we are a nonprofit. In fact, we are a true nonprofit, and we don't even take financial donations. So spreading the word and letting people know, whether it's medical supplies or, as Jeff mentioned, school supplies, anything at all, planting that seed in people's brains like, hey, yeah, why don't we do this? We could take an extra suitcase. That's our biggest challenge. So we've actually, through the Scuba Show, we've actually already made contacts with some tour companies and some resorts where they're going to actually put us on their webpage saying, hey, when you come to scuba with us, think about taking an extra suitcase. We'll connect you with a local clinic, and you can make a difference when you
That's
travel.
cool.
And but the other thing is, put it on your website, share it through social media, just get that word out so people, it doesn't occur to people. There are plenty of people that would be willing to do this, but it just doesn't pop into their brain, with all the other trip planning issues they have to go through. The last thing on their mind is, where are we going to get our medical supplies to bring with us? It doesn't even enter their brain, or school supplies.
Great
so,
stuff.
Spreading the word is a key for us.
Thanks, Carl.
Have we got time that I can ask a question about this?
Sure. Go, Marty Snyderman.
Carl, one of the things, I read that article, and I love the concept. When I travel, I mean, I'm a photographer, so I'm equipment heavy. And I tell people all the time, I travel with 4 strobes, 3 camera bodies, 2 camera housings, and 1 pair of underwear. So I don't have and if I take extra gear, which I have to do sometimes, it's brutally expensive. I'm not saying that we shouldn't all do that. And is there a financial connection here? I mean, that extra suitcase, the airlines, for their good business reasons, don't just allow you to do that. Is there any kind of deal because it's a medical supplies or anything that
an allowance to take a second suitcase of love, I think is what he's asking, right, Carl? Or what do you think?
Yes, we have had some success with particularly foreign airlines, which most scuba divers are going to be using, as opposed to American Airlines, where they'll allow a free suitcase of humanitarian supplies, basically, as part of your allowance. They'll let you take it for free. We give you a letter on our letterhead basically saying, this is a humanitarian donation to the people of Tahiti or wherever you happen to be going, so that you can show that to them, like, okay, here's what the suitcase is. We are trying to help the people of this country. And probably about 70% of the time that's presented to the people at the baggage carousel, the manager,
they'll let it go.
They'll wave it through. Wave it through. Not guaranteed.
Not are saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is you don't know that until you get to the airline counter.
That is 100% unfortunately correct.
Yeah.
That being said,
and you got to sell it to them a little bit too, Marty. You say, hey, look, I was only going to bring 1 pair of underwear. If you let me take this suitcase of love, I'm going to be able to pack a couple extra pair in there too. And trust me, that's a humanitarian gift to the world.
Some of the international airlines will indeed, and if you dive deep enough into their website, they do allow a suitcase of humanitarian supplies.
Yeah.
But it's usually buried.
Everybody has a heart. Sometimes you got to just explain it to them.
This has been great. We just hit an hour. So thank you, everybody, for their contributions. I know we could talk about some of these subjects for a long time, but thanks again for everybody being here. Greg, I'm going to let you out. Next month, by the way, I'm really looking forward to an article that many of them, Climate Change from Alex. We've got Selling Adventure. It's going to be a great article that's already been submitted to us. And our retailers at a tipping point. My buddy Jeff here has some really interesting insights, and I think he's spot on. And if you haven't read the book Tipping Point, that's your assignment till we come back next time and get together.
There you go. And that's for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. We've been talking about the June issue, and that's July.
That's July. Britton, you got anything to contribute?
Britton, he just gave us a thumbs up.
So far, so great.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
He's like, all right. Yeah, you're approved.
Thanks again, Greg, for, as usual, producing a great show for us.
Well,
everybody should listen to Scuba Radio.
At least adequate for now. And that's the best you're going to get out of me. But look, feel free to check in on Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern time. And for the folks here at Level Up and Scuba Radio and the rest of the crew, remember, it's always better down where it's wetter.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Klein Group. For more info, go to scubadivingindustry.com.